Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Hyperbaric Gurus. Today we're talking about another one of my favorites. They're all my favorites, but this one's a little bit special to these two here because they had to deal with it. Cancer. That's what we're talking about this week. So I'm going to kick it off with Dr. Cornell this time. Dr. Cornell, explain to us a little bit about what cancer is and how it can help or how it cannot help.
The hyperbaric chamber and how it can help. Okay. Well, cancer, first of all, is it's an abnormal condition from the cells in your body. I mean, you can cause it by irritation, by rubbing it against something. We've known for years that cancer was caused by cigarette smoking, and that was the tar that was actually infiltrating your lungs. And it constantly irritated it. If you irritate tissue long enough, it develops abnormal cells. Abnormal cells, cancerous cells. So all of us at the beginning of life was just basically the same cells that form cancer is how our body starts reproducing cells, that they just one cell doubles into two, and two into four, 4 into 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, and on and on and on. And that's how our body forms. Then all of a sudden there's a little black line. It's called a neural cord that develops in the body. When the neural cord develops, it starts separating tissue to become bone, skin, teeth, cartilage, and so forth. And it starts setting up a systemic approach to building a human body. And so at that point, then these cells are not called chorioblastic cells, which are cancer cells. They become specialized cells in the body. And so if you irritate anything or interfere with that, then you can cause a cancerous form. Bill and I both had stage 4 throat cancer, and that was pressure. I mean, the cancer cells that were developing in the throat developed. It affected the lymphatic glands. Lymphatic glands then got infected. We were worried about it spreading throughout the rest of the body, and that's how it does through the lymph glands. Fortunately, ours didn't. And that's how we got into hyperbaric chambers. Bill was going down to Atlanta, Georgia to actually be treated because there was hyperbaric chambers down there in a clinic, and they oxygenated his cells. Cancer can't live in an oxygenated body. Actually, diseases can't live in an oxygenated body.
So, back to cancer, we'll get into. We'll talk a little bit more about both your situation and Bill's situation here in a little bit. But back to the cancer part. So, when you were talking about, it's 2 cells, 3 cells, 4,
Right, how they multiply.
Multiplying.
Mitosis.
How fast can that happen? Once it kicks off and it starts.
Oh, you mean cancer or
how fast can it spread throughout the body? How fast, once it metastasizes, how fast can it spread?
You have lymph glands all over your body, and lymph glands have an arterial or artery supply to it, little arterioles or smaller arteries, and it actually gets into the blood vascular system, and then it spreads from the blood vascular system to the lymphatic system, and then spreads throughout your body. And that's what you don't want to have happen, because the more parts of your body that are affected by cancer, the worse the cancer is in your body.
Wow. So on a rate, I guess it depends on the type of cancer then.
Absolutely.
How fast it spreads throughout your body. So I guess it depends on where you get it. So it could be months, it could be days, it could be weeks.
Weeks or months.
And the reason I'm asking these questions is I want to help. Me better understand, along with our viewers, better understand, cancer. Cancer as people they just hear cancer and they're scared of it.
It's an abnormal condition of the body. The cells start this growth. They lose their normal function. What a cell tissue does, if you take a group of cells and you put them together, they become tissue, like the tissue on the outside of your body. And anyway, it becomes tissue. And if you grab a certain amount of tissue and it has the same function, then it becomes an organ. Like a finger is an organ as much as the heart, the liver, the kidneys are organs. So those are groups of tissue gathered together to do the same function in the body.
Okay, so Bill.
Yes, I am.
How you doing? So let's we talked a little bit, Dr. Cornell explained a little bit to us, in our audience about how much, what cancer is, like the science of it, the medical terms and things like that. Let's talk a little bit about your experience with cancer and how you came to find out what helps and what doesn't help with cancer.
Well, about 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. About 6 months prior to that, I went into my ear, nose, and throat doctor and had a checkup because I just felt something wasn't right. And he looked and said, everything's fine, there's no problems here. And about 6 months later, I was out doing a seminar in Tennessee, and I felt a lump on the side of my throat. So when I came back, I went to the same ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he takes a look and says, wow, how did I miss that? Not the words you want to hear. So I went to a naturopath, and they said, cancer is nothing to fear. It's a virus. Your body has been fighting your whole life cancer cells. But what we have to do is get your body back in shape so it can do what it's been doing your whole life. Whatever you do, don't do chemo and radiation or you're going to die. Well, then I go to the University of Washington, and they say, we have to get you in for surgery tomorrow, and then we need to start chemo and radiation or you're going to die. And I realized at that point in time, everybody's got an opinion. But one opinion doesn't work for everybody. And there's so much contradicting information out there that it really comes down to you have to do what you feel is right for you. If the naturopath is right, and my immune system has been fighting cancer my whole life, and I go on a diet and make sure my immune system is back to where it should, then why do I have to do anything else? But I'm going to tell you what, I did everything. Somebody told me I should buy a rice machine, and I bought a rice machine. Somebody said you should do vitamin C IV drips. I did vitamin C IV drips. Somebody said you should try a cold laser. I bought a cold laser. You name it, I tried it. Because I've always said I'm going to be really pissed when I die because I love living so much. And I didn't want to leave anything on the table. And if we really get to the bottom line of this, if you have cancer, why would you not try a hyperbaric chamber? It's not going to hurt you. It's widely promoted in the medical community that cancer can't survive, cancer being a virus, and that viruses can't survive in an oxygen-rich environment. So to this day, 8 years after I was diagnosed, I spend an hour a day in the hyperbaric chamber. Because if I keep my cells filled with oxygen, which is what the hyperbaric chamber is doing, you're laying in there, you're breathing 95% oxygen. But the key is the pressure. The pressure is forcing that into your cells and into your tissues and into your body fluids. So if I keep my cells filled with oxygen, it can severely reduce my risk of ever having to do chemo again. I can tell you this, before I was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't pay attention to anything that I put in my mouth. But after I was diagnosed, I paid attention to everything that went into my mouth. And not just that, but I was paying attention to how this would affect my cells, how much my cells were loving me for giving them this nourishment. So we get asked all the time. When I bought a chamber and brought it home with me, I spent an hour a day for 2 years in the chamber hoping it would dissolve my tumor. It didn't. But during that 2-year period, the cancer never spread. Well, many nights, so it did what they said it would do. Many nights I slept in the hyperbaric chamber. I get asked all the time now, if I buy a chamber and sleep in it, is it going to help? And knowing now what I know, which I didn't know back then, my answer is no. It's not going to hurt you. But the reality is that when we fill ourselves with oxygen, when you're laying in the chamber, you're breathing 95% oxygen, it's forcing that oxygen into your cells. But once they're full, they're full. Staying another hour is going to make them more full. The bigger question is, how long is it going to take for those cells to deplete before you have to fill them up again? And we're all like snowflakes. Everybody's different. One person might be once a day, one person might be once a week. So
I got a question for you.
okay,
With when you went in and did chemo and radiation and just got your tumor taken off and all that stuff, because the chamber only helped. It helped to not metastasize, but it didn't get rid of the tumor, right?
it did not get rid of the tumor, but I read a lot of testimonials, and a lot of our patients have now told us and sent us letters that it did get rid of their tumor. We had a trade show here in town a couple of years ago, and we had just set the booth up in the chamber, and a policeman comes up and says, "Oh my God, a hyperbaric chamber, that saved my partner's life. He had inoperable brain cancer. He got in the chamber, it's all gone." We hear that almost every time we do a trade show where a husband or wife comes up and says, "This saved my life," or "This saved my husband's life," or "This saved my daughter's life." Sometimes they're so over the top, I have to turn I'm talking to and say, "They don't work for me." They're so excited about what the chamber did for them.
So when that brings up another really interesting question. Just so everybody knows, we're going to be mainly talking about cancer today, what it can do, how bad it is for you, and, all the different styles of cancer, and your cancer, John's cancer, we're going to ask him about here in a little bit. This is actually a two-parter. Next week, we're going to be talking about the recovery from cancer. So back to your cancer, when you went in and they had, they took it out and all that stuff, did they prescribe you a hyperbaric chamber after that, or did they say you need to go do this or do that? Or?
But first of all, they didn't take anything out.
Okay.
I had a tumor about the size of a lemon on the side of my neck, and I went out to a clinic in Atlanta, and they explained to me that the tumor was not going to kill me. What was going to kill me was that metastasizing throughout your body. So if the theory is correct, that cancer can't survive in oxygen-rich environment, and we keep our cells filled with oxygen, then there's nowhere for the cancer to spread. Now, I bought that hook, line, and sinker, and I bought a chamber, and I brought it home, and I spent an hour a day for 2 years in it. And during that time, the cancer never spread. So it did what they said it would do. But then I got tired of carrying the tumor around, so I did chemo and radiation, and that got rid of my tumor. Well, at that point in time, I quit getting in the hyperbaric chamber. Tumor's gone, so I didn't need the chamber anymore. But 2 years later, all my teeth start falling out from the radiation damage. I go to a neurosurgeon, and he said, the first thing I have to have you do is get into a hyperbaric chamber because it's the only treatment that will reverse radiation damage. And I need to rebuild the bone and rebuild the tissue so I have something to put my implants into. And we'll get more into that next week, I know, so I won't go on about this. But I can tell you this. Basically, I sell hyperbaric chambers around the world. And over the years, I've seen the transgression, a lot of athletes purchase chambers, but now it seems that we probably get 10 to 15 calls a week from people that have cancer. Probably the three biggest calls, we get calls on cancer, Lyme disease, and stroke and traumatic brain injuries the most. It'll help a lot more, but so what that tells you is that people are finding out what the hyperbaric chamber will do for their cancer, and the word is spreading, and they either want to find out or they want to put a chamber in their home. I kind of attribute that to like professional football players. Over 400 professional football players own hyperbaric chambers because on Mondays they feel like crap, and this reduces their inflammation and increases their healing time by up to 70%. Well, if 3 or 4 of them owned a chamber, it wouldn't be much of a statement. But the fact that hundreds of them do, it's because they've seen the benefit and the word has spread. It's the same thing with cancer. The word is spreading. But today, even many of the people are calling me because their doctors told them they needed to put hyperbaric therapy into their life.
Back to the, I'm going to ask a couple questions over here, Dr. Cornell, but hearing about all the different football players that own the hyperbaric chambers, it kind of makes me hope that all the Seahawks get in a chamber this week for the coming Super Bowl game. So, Dr. Cornell, we kind of covered a little bit about how cancer starts. Bill talked a little bit about his encounter with cancer. So, tell me and our viewers here a little bit about your experience with cancer when your own.
Well, I had the same cancer that Bill had. One morning I got up to shave, and I noticed it looked like a third of a golf ball sticking out of the side of my neck. And so I was looking at it, palpating it. Didn't have a sore throat, no problem swallowing or breathing. And so I got a hold of a good friend of mine that's my local physician, and he looked at it, and he said, well, what do you think it is, Doc? And I said, I think it's a lymph gland. He said, that's what I think too. He said, but we need an ENT to take a look at it, ear, nose, and throat specialist. Excuse me. So I went into Tacoma. The doctor looked at it and he says, you've got stage 3 throat cancer. And I said, really? And he said, yes. But I'm going to send you to an ENT, and you can go to University of Washington or another clinic up there in Seattle. It starts with an M. I can't think of it right now. But anyway, go to one of those two, and I said, okay, I'll pick the one that starts with an M that I'm blanking out on right now. So I went up to that, and the doctor looked at me. He said, I agree with everything that the other doctor said, but it's not stage 3, it's stage 4. And he said, we need to start chemo and radiation on this right away. I said, okay. So they set me up. That was the day before Christmas in 2008. And I went in the day after Christmas, and they removed a bunch of the cancer, the irritated tissue in there, to do some studies on it and see how it would react to chemotherapy and radiation and so forth. So they removed some, not to remove the whole tumor, but they removed a bunch of the tissue. And then we started chemo and radiation therapy at the time. Bill had it worse than I did. And they opened them up, they removed lymph glands. I didn't have to have that done. The radiation, we both had the same type of radiation. And the radiation that I had, actually, it was Virginia Mason Hospital was the one that I went to.
Virginia Mason.
And anyway, they removed some tissue out of his lymph glands and did some other things. We both had the same type of radiation. Why his was different than mine, I don't know. But he lost a lot of the tissue damage done to the jaw and so forth, because when they're radiating you through this area here to kill that. It killed my thyroid gland. I don't know if the same thing happened to Bill or not, whether he lost the function of the thyroid. But and the irritated tissue that they had in there, they started radiation and chemotherapy on it, which is bad. The only time I really had trouble with the cancer was I couldn't swallow at night. It had built up, my body was building up a resistance to the cancer by building new tissue inside the throat, and I was building up all this mucus in the throat where the radiation was damaging that to where I couldn't breathe at night. And that was really terrible, because you'd wake up and you'd be almost suffocating and have to get that phlegm out of the throat. And after you'd spit that up, then you can breathe a little bit again. And it was bad. There was nights when I knelt down alongside the bed and wanted to be, God to take me out of this life. But that happened 1 or 2 nights, and after that I was fine. I wasn't depressed other than that. I lost a lot of weight because I couldn't swallow. I got down to about 100 in between 137 and 132 pounds. I don't remember, but lost a lot of weight in there. My body was just slipping away from me. I looked in the mirror one day and I was shocked what I saw. And like what we were saying earlier, is those tissue cells in your body with this virus, this cancer virus, just become abnormal cells, and they start multiplying. And it's kind of interesting, not to get into too much of the medical part of it, but I think everybody needs to know this, why cancer victims keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, is these cells are larger cells than the normal cells you have in your body, so that they're mixed in with the normal cells, and they're larger cells, and they have no function. Their function isn't to become part of an organ or part of the other tissue around there in your body. Their purpose in life, cancer cells, is to grow, and they're larger than the other cells. There's a chemical, it's called basophilic acid, that every cell in your body needs to survive. These basophilic acids come from the food we eat, the water we drink, and so forth, and the chemical response to that builds this basophilic acid, which is the food source for every cell in the body. Now, the larger cells eat more of the basophilic acid, and the smaller cells don't get as much, and they start dying off. And that's why the body starts losing weight and fat and tissue and everything else, is because these tissues are dying off. The fat cells are the big cells, not the fat cells, but the bigger cells are growing, which are the cancer cells. So it's kind of interesting how that happens. A lot of people don't understand, why does the cancer victim get so skinny and small and they're dying with all these cancer cells. They're killing off by eating more food, basophilic acid, than the normal cells in your body that have function. Cancer cells have no function other than to grow.
Okay.
So that's in their chorioblastic cells, which the whole body, when your body starts out, after the ovum is impregnated with the spermatozoa and they start multiplying, those cells are called chorioblastic cells. The same thing that happens with cancer, those are chorioblastic cells.
Wow. So, I mean, everything that we just heard, that was actually really entertaining, because, you know, most people don't know that. I didn't know that you know, that's why people lose so much weight. That's why the cancer cells are just out eating everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So now, let's go on. I got a couple more questions for you, and then I want to get into our next segment of our webinar. Then I'm going to bring it back over to Bill. So,
all right.
When you were finishing up your cancer, how did you end up using a hyperbaric chamber? What brought you to that point?
Bill.
Bill did. Why?
Bill had the cancer 2 years before I did. We were both sitting at the same table at Rotary Club together, and Bill disappeared. I mean, he just wasn't coming to Rotary Club, and everybody was curious what happened to him, why, he was gone, and so forth. And we found out that, I found out through another good friend of mine that was sitting at the table, that Bill had cancer. And although knowing a couple people that have had cancer, I never had anybody that close other than my grandfather that had cancer. And so we were all feeling bad and concerned and praying for his return to good health. And so that's how I found out about hyperbaric chambers. Was Bill had one, and he was treating his cancer cells with it. Like Bill said, he bought whatever he needed to try to get rid of this terrible disease that was in the body.
Okay. So Bill taught you about the chambers, and
Absolutely.
And then you went and did you have surgery or just chemo after they removed that little tissue? You had chemo?
They went in through my throat and removed the tissue on the inside.
Okay.
And then after that, I started going through chemotherapy and radiation therapy. They would do radiation every day. I'd have the chemotherapy for 5 hours at a time, once every week.
Okay. So, and then progressively from that, Bill told you that, so you started using the chamber to recover from that, which we'll talk about next week. So, what are some things, before I go over to Bill here, what are some things people can do nowadays to help prevent getting cancer?
Well, not only cancer, but any disease. Explained to me once by a physician, and he said, you can ask any physician that does research, you can ask any doctor that works at a hospital. A healthy body, a strong immune system will keep your body healthy. Once you weaken your immune system, then you'll come down with the cold, the flu, or anything else that's out there, bacteria or viral or whatever. You lower your body's resistance, and then you can succumb to whatever disease is out there. A healthy body won't catch a cancer, won't catch a virus, won't catch a bacterial infection or anything, because our immune system is built up in our body to fight that. People always say, well, I have strep throat. That's caused by a streptococcus. That's in everybody's body all the time. You can take a swab of anybody's throat, and they have streptococcus and pneumococcus on that swab. Okay. And our immune system keeps us from letting the strep throat build up so much that our body loses resistance to it, and then all of a sudden we get streptococcus and strep throat, and we can't swallow properly, or we can't function properly. Cold, bacterial infections, influenza, cancer, arthritis, anything you can think of, that the body's immune system is lowered.
So, food. What type of foods should they avoid? What type of water, drinks? Fast food.
Well,
What I mean. Now, this is just your opinion. Obviously, this is Dr. Cornell's opinion, our opinion on what we think, because we are kind of biased a certain way. But what are some things as far as cancer that is concerned that people can avoid eating, etc.? And
hamburgers and chocolate milkshake. No, I'm kidding.
are you kidding?
Bill, yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
I know. Bill loves hamburger. No, but anyway, fast foods that they use a lot of grease in, like French fries and so forth, different foods like that. If you want to keep your body healthy, feed it with healthy tissues that it can manufacture into healthy tissues in the body. Don't put chemicals into it. Anything that lowers your immune system will lower your whole body's resistance against diseases. And it's interesting. I had a doctor in college one time that was teaching a class, and he said, "You know what disease is?" He says, "It's dis-ease. When your body's not at ease, it's dis-ease." So that's all it means. The disease is when your body's not at ease. You lower that immune system's way to fight the body's bacterials and so forth, then you become diseased.
So, is there any fruits, vegetables, nuts, and then this will be our last part, and then I want to move over to Bill so we can finish up. But what is there any fruits that you're aware of, or foods or anything like that? And Bill, feel free to chime in if you know of any that people could potentially eat to help prevent or to help boost their immune systems, things like that.
There's a lot of natural foods out there that you can fruits, vegetables, and so forth that you can get if they're grown naturally, not sprayed with a lot of chemicals. Chemicals will lower your body's resistance, and then we become affected by a lowered immune system. But any foods that you can get, vegetables, fruits, vegetables that are natural and not sprayed and not condensed down and other things that they do at the factory with it. Meats, a lot of people say I avoid red meats. I eat fish and chicken. That's fine. If it's good, clean, natural fish and chicken, go ahead and do that. People say, I stay away from seafoods because of iodine, and I'm affected by iodine. If your body's immune system is functioning properly, you shouldn't be affected by anything. You should never have asthma. You should never have cancer. You shouldn't have the flu. You shouldn't have colds. If your body's immune system is strong, you won't become diseased.
Exactly. And some people have the unfortunate effect when they're born that some people are born because of their parents or somebody else
Genetic.
have some type of disorder, thing like that. As far as some people who have asthma, some of that's brought on, but some aren't. So, Bill, let's come back over to you here. What we talked a little bit about preventative measures and about the cancer and things like that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the company and what we do. So,
Okay, well, I just want to,
if you want to,
I'm going to add a little bit to what Dr. Cornell was saying. First of all, I see we have several viewers on here, so if you have questions,
I'm going to get that.
we'll be getting to the questions in just a couple of minutes. But so natural foods are important. So chocolate milkshakes are made out of milk, which comes from cows.
Which is amazing.
Okay, so here's what everybody should realize, and they probably do at this point in time, is that the number one cause of cancer, the primary cause of cancer, is the lack of oxygen at the cellular level. And as we age, we don't breathe as deep as we used to. We're not as active as we used to be. So our immune system becomes compromised and can't do what it's been doing our whole life. So what we have to do, we have to put a few things into our life to help our body along. The reality is we live in a reactive society. We wait until we get sick before we do something about it. The hyperbaric chamber will help you be proactive instead of reactive. Another thing I want to add is that when I went out to this clinic in Atlanta, they said, you know, if your pH would have been at 7, you never would have acquired cancer in the first place. I said, how do I get my pH up? And they said, you know what, drink water, change your water. Drink alkaline water. I drowned myself in this stuff, it didn't help. But since then, I found out about Kangen water. In our clinics, we require our patients to drink Kangen water. The difference is the water molecules in Kangen water are 1/6 the size of a regular water molecule, so the body absorbs it. So when you're drinking 9.5 pH water, your body's absorbing it. I can show you slides from the doctor that invented endoscopy. He's the chief surgeon at Bethesda Medical Center. And he works with a lot of patients with colon cancer. And he'll show you a picture of a cancerous colon. And 3 months after being on a special diet and drinking Kangen water, those colons are cancer-free. So I think there's a lot of things, you know, we hear from a lot of patients that don't want to do chemo and radiation. Just like I didn't want to. Just like Dr. Cornell didn't want to. And some of them are bound and determined to find a way to naturally attack their cancer. And you hear about the hyperbaric chamber. More and more and more you hear about what the hyperbaric chamber does. But you also hear about everything else. You hear about food-grade hydrogen peroxide. You hear about lemon extract, vitamin C IV drip. I can go down a whole long list. And
So, I hate to interrupt, but we're coming down on our deadline of time. So let's talk a little bit about the clinics, because it's a 2 segment.
let me just add this and then I'll shut up. But my thing is that if something might help you, why would you not try it? If it's not going to hurt you. And that's the thing about the hyperbaric chamber. And the thing is, I don't think you need to do all of them, because a lot of them are doing the same thing. Food-grade hydrogen peroxide in the hyperbaric chamber are probably doing the same thing. If you're in the chamber and you're 100%, your cells are 100% full of oxygen, what's the food-grade hydrogen peroxide going to do more than that? But again, if something might help, why would you not try it? Your life is at stake. You have everything to win and nothing to lose. So, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay. No, because it is a 2-parter, so we'll be able to cover a lot of that too this next Tuesday. But I wanted to get to some questions, and then also before we get to the questions here, let's talk a little bit about the clinics.
Yeah. So we operate a chain of hyperbaric clinics. Anybody is more than welcome to call us, ask us questions. Typically, we can tell you what the chambers can do, what they can't do. We also sell chambers all over the world. So if you want one in your home, we can set you up. A prescription is required to purchase a chamber. We have an in-house physician sitting over here that will be glad to talk to you about that. With the prescription, you can write the chamber off of your taxes. because it's a prescribed medical device for in-home use. You're welcome to call me. My phone's with me 24 hours a day. My number is 253-363-0500. We have a website, h3oxygentherapy.com, and then on our chamber cells, we have Alaska Hyperbarics, that's with an S, plural, .com. So,
Perfect. And if you guys need, again, just reiterating, you can get a hold of Bill at 253-363-0500. My number over here is 206-794-8229. And John's number is
253-549-1271, or you can call the manager of the clinics, which her number is 253-549-1270, and her name is Linda.
perfect. So now again, we have two websites. We have our clinic website, which is h3oxygentherapy.com, h3oxygentherapy.com, or alaskahyperbarics.com, which is where we do our chamber cell side. And we got a showroom. We got a bunch of different chambers on there that everybody can go look at, if you're interested in purchasing a chamber. So we're going to go ahead and get to our question segment here. Micah had a question here, and I guess this, I'll ask a question, and then whoever wants to answer, John or Bill. Micah's saying, if I have colon cancer, I heard you talking about the Kangen water. Would I be able to just use that water or the hyperbaric chamber to get rid of colon cancer? It's kind of a basic question, but who wants to answer that? So,
I'll go ahead and jump in there. I think you should do both. I believe that the hyperbaric chamber will enhance the benefit of the Kangen water, and I think the Kangen water will enhance the benefit of the hyperbaric chamber.
okay. So next question here is Shauna's asking, what was that question there?
I have lung cancer, have been through chemo, and have lost a lot of weight. How can it help me?
Who wants to answer that? John? Bill? Go ahead, John.
Well, actually,
go for it here.
Lung cancer is when we're breathing 95% oxygen in a hyperbaric chamber, you're breathing 95% oxygen. And like Bill says, that's not the key. I mean, to get pure oxygen into your body, you're absorbing it. But if you look up on the internet or in a dictionary or encyclopedia, Henry's Law will explain how the hyperbaric chamber works. And the pressure is the key. The pressure, 4.2 pounds per square inch, is actually pressing that into your body, the oxygen, which is a gas. And once it's in your body, that pressure is putting it into your soft tissues, and then eventually it gets into the blood vascular stream and the arteries and through the arterioles to every tissue in your body. More oxygen, the healthier you are. And I think Bill touched on it a little bit. When we're younger, we run and we play, we breathe real heavy, we're getting oxygen in. That's 18 to 20% oxygen that we're taking into our body. This is 95% oxygen you're breathing inside the hyperbaric chamber, and the pressure is driving it into your blood vascular system and into your body. Bill also touched on using hydrogen peroxide. They've been using that for years for getting more oxygen into the cellular tissue of your body. They were using intravenous food grade hydrogen peroxide. And you don't have to have somebody inject this into your body. You don't have to have a needle go in. What you're taking is oxygen, and the oxygen that you're taking into your body is being driven in there via Henry's Law. So that would be, and then actually the lungs, if you have lung cancer, you get more oxygen into it. Henry's law is driving it into the cellular tissue in your body. That's even better.
So Shauna, to answer your question, hyperbaric therapy can help.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
absolutely.
So got another question here. David's asking, how will hyperbaric help me with my radiation burns? Who wants to answer that? Bill?
Okay. Let's expand on that a little bit.
You listening, David?
We get asked, if I'm doing chemo and radiation, is it okay to do hyperbaric therapy at the same time? The word that we have received from our doctors is that, yes, first of all, when it comes to radiation, if there's anything the hyperbaric chamber is known for, it increases your healing time by up to 70%. I have a PowerPoint that was done by Dr. Maxfield in regards to hyperbaric therapy and radiation. And he talks about the tremendous benefit that his patients have seen using hyperbaric therapy in regards to radiation damage. In fact, it's been a while since I looked at it, but he said it reduced the mortality rate something like 50%. If anybody wants a copy of that PowerPoint, I would be glad to send it to them if they want to give me a call. The question on chemo is a little more challenging. The doctors that we have talked to said that it is good to use hyperbaric therapy with chemo. In fact, it enhances the benefits of chemo. But there is one series of chemo drugs that you do not want to do hyperbaric therapy with. And if I remember right, there's a platinum series. But if you do have chemo and if you are taking chemo and you are under a doctor's care, which I would assume you would be if you're taking chemo, I would talk to him first and let him know what you want to do. And but if you talk to him, let him know you're doing mild hyperbaric therapy. Not the high pressure, but the mild pressure. There's a world of difference between the two. My guess is he's going to say, yes, the mild pressure is good, but don't do the high pressure.
Perfect. So, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, guys. We got a second part coming this next week. I'm really excited for that. That's going to finish it off now. So stay tuned this next week, this next Tuesday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're going to have another, we're going to finish up our webinar on cancer. We're going to talk about how cancer can, I mean, not how cancer, how hyperbaric therapy has helped and different, how people recovered from it and the whole recovery process of cancer. So again, you can call Bill anytime. You can call me or John. You can call our clinic. You will get a hold of our clinic director, who is Linda. And, stay tuned, guys. We're excited for this next week. And I do want to throw out there in a few weeks here, we're going to have a special guest on Tongue and Water. So stay tuned for that, too. So we'll talk later, guys.
Thank you.